So now we can check the content and see how many times the character that the user is about to user types, okay, how many times the character that the user types appears in the contents in the file. All right, so now we have the contents in the file. So let's go ahead and ask the user to enter a character. Okay, we didn't ask a user that. Okay, we needed to make sure, just to make the program, make sure the program is running nice. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to create a line break, and I'm going to use this I'm going to use the system.out.println method over here and say please enter a character to count. Okay, so please enter a character to count, and the user is going to enter a character. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and call the scanner.nextInt. What am I saying? Not a next int, I'm sorry. It's not a next int. Scanner.nextLine. So once the user, this is basically going to pop up a text box and allow the user to type in a string. Okay, now the next line method again returns takes whatever the user types and returns it as a string. First, let's go ahead and declare a variable that's going to store the character. So I'm going to create a character variable, and I'm going to call it user character. Now, remember I said next line returns a string. We can't go ahead and store a string in user character like this. Although we need to store the character that the user types into over here. We've asked the user to enter a character, to count. So this variable is going to store what the character that the user types, but what the user types over here is going to return as a string. So we need some kind of some way to convert whatever the user types into a character. One way we can do is this. One thing we can do is this. We can use sorry. We can say this. Scanner.nextLine is going to take everything that the user types and return it as a string. So assuming the user types in Apple, okay. Even though we've asked the user to enter a character, the user can type in a word because it's it's a next line takes strings. We don't have any code to check that, so we can do this. we can do this. Basically, we can say scanner.nextLine dot character at position 0. So what we are doing is saying this: take whatever the user has typed and fetch the character at position 0. Now words have each letter in a word has an index, or a position. By position I mean index. Has an index. So basically fetch the first character fetch me the first character at index 0. The first letter of every word has an index of 0. The next one has an index of 1, 2, 3, 4. So the index starts from 0. Each of the first character of every word has an index of 0. So the first character of every string. So in this case, A has an index of 0. So even if the user types in Apple, we're going to fetch A. If the user goes ahead and types A, we're going to fetch A because we're always fetching the first character, and it's going to store it. Now because we're fetching the character, it's going to, even though this is a string, it's fetching the character from that string and it's going to store it here. So we'll have the character stored here. So I'll go ahead and delete it. So now we will have the character here. So now we can go ahead and create a for loop and go ahead and check how many times that letter appears in the string. So we can go ahead and declare an integer. I'm going to go ahead and say int index. Now I explained the idea of index a little bit over here, so I'll go ahead and even elaborate on it. So I'm going to create a an integer variable called index and initialize it to 0. And I'm going to say, the reason why I'm initializing it to 0 is because we're going to start always from assuming the person typed in Apple. We're going to go through each letter in the word. We're going to use a for loop to do that, and each letter has an index. Starting from the first, which has an index of 0, P has an index of 1, 2, 3, 4. Although the count, okay, the number of characters in the word is 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, index starts at 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're starting from the index of 0. As long as the index is less than the word, okay, the contents, in this case the contents from the file, user contents from file. As long as the index is less than user contents from file dot length. Now realize that the index, because we're going through each character in the word, user contents from file dot length is going to return to you how many characters are in the word apple. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 characters, right? We have 5 characters here. 5 characters. Okay, 5 characters. I don't want to do that. It has 5 characters, okay? All right, so 5 characters is the length. Okay, so what we are saying is as long as 0 is less than, as long as the index is less than 5, right? And the index will always be less than 5 because the max index of this word is 4 because it always starts from 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, if we say that as long as the index is less than 4, index is going to get to 4, is going to check, in this case, the 4th index, which is this, okay, index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is going to be the last word, the last letter it checks, which has an index of 4. If the loop comes back up again and increases, and I'll get to that. We'll loop, and each time we'll loop, we'll increase index to 1. So the loop comes back up again and it increases the index to 1. Index will be 5, and it's going to ask, is 5 less than 5? No, so it's going to stop. So it's not going to try to search for a 5th index. There's none. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, not 1, 2, 3, 4. It's only 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 in indexes. Indices for this word 1, 2, 3, this word of 5 characters. Okay, this word, 4 indices. All right, so yes, so what this for loop is saying is initialize index to 0 as long as index is less than the user contents from file. In this case, if the user typed in apple, it's going to be 5. As long as the index is less than 5, I'm just assuming the user typed in apple. Then do whatever is in this for loop, and before you come back up here and check this condition, add 1 to index. I do that with index plus plus, or you can do index equals to index plus 1. It's the same thing, but I'm just going to do index plus plus, or you can also do index plus equals 1. So they all work, but I'm going to do index plus plus. Okay, now in this index plus equals 1 is also the same as saying this. What I'm adding to index is 1. Okay, what I'm adding to index is 1. Okay, something like that. But I'm going to go ahead and do plus plus. Sorry, index plus plus. All right, so that's what it's doing. Index is equals to 1 as long as index is less than user contents from file dot length. Do what's in the for loop and add 1 to index, and then come and check this. Keep looping, keep doing that. So by the time, so what this loop is basically doing, it's going through each. So what it's going to do is we're going to write code here that's going to go through each letter in the word that the user types. If the user typed in apple, it's going to go through each letter, and it's going to compare it with the user character, the character that the user typed, and see if that character appears in that, if that character, for example, it's going to start with A. It's going to compare A with the user character. If A matches the user character, then let's start counting, how many times, then we have a match. So let's start counting how many times. So if A is equals to, if let's say the user types in A, if A is equals to A, then we have 1 match. So let's go ahead and start counting. And by the time the loop is done, we'll have how many times that letter appeared in the string, and then we can display it. So let's do that. So we are going through each letter in the contents of the file, and we are going to say this. We're going to create an if statement in the loop and say if, okay, we're going to say if user content, if user content, sorry, my typing is not good. If user content from file, okay, dot character at. Now we talked about character at over here. We talked about it over here. So this time, instead of using a real number, because I have index here, an index is going to be incremented by 1 each time the loop comes back, we can use it. Basically, the index is what we are going to use to refer to the positions of the word, of the contents from the file. Okay, so if the contents of the file was, let's say, apple, okay, this time around the user is not typing content themselves, so we are reading contents from the file. So if the content of the file is, let's say, apple, then index first will be 0, which is going to be a here. 1 will be added to index, which is going to basically access the second index, which is 1, so 0, 1. So by the time this is done, we're going to go through the word. So over here, the first time it loops, we're saying user content, if user contents of file dot character at position index. Now index is going to keep track of the numbers, so we can put it there and say whatever position, because index is going to be incremented by 1. So if that character, since we are going through each letter, it's going to compare all the letters. So if that character is equal to the user character that the user has typed here. So if that character is equal to the user character, then that means we have a match. So let's go ahead and start counting. Let's create a variable that's going to keep track of that count. So I'm going to go ahead and create an integer variable, and it's an integer because it's just a count, okay? I'm going to call it character count, okay? And before we start counting, it's 0 because we haven't counted anything. Before you count anything, you have 0 until you start counting, where you go from 1, 2, 3. So it's 0. So I initialize it to 0, and I come down here and I say character count. Okay, if this is the case, if that first letter or that letter that we are at in the loop, okay, at the moment matches user character, then character count is going to go up by 1. So we can either do character count plus plus, not plus plus. Let's see. Let's yeah, you can do that. You can do that. Actually, you can do that. But yeah, you can do that, and that will work too. You can do that. But I'm going to go ahead and make this clear. So character count is going to be equal to character count plus 1. You can do that. You can do it both ways, or all three ways. So character count is going to be equal to character count plus 1. Okay, I'm doing this just to be safe because I do this all the time. Or you can just say character count plus, what am I doing? Plus equals 1. Okay, and what this means again is what I'm adding to character count, okay, is 1. Okay, you can read it this way, or you can keep it this way and say character count is equal to character count plus 1. Now character count initially is 0, right? So what you are saying is this: 0 plus 1 gives you a total of 1. So now go ahead and add 1 into character count. So now character count will be 1 if there's a match. If it comes back up again and this is true, there's a match again, character count already contains 1. So it's going to be equal to 1 plus 1, and then this whole result is going to be 2, and it's going to store it in character count. So basically character count is keeping character counter. Let me see how I declared it over here. I called it character count, and over here I called it character counter. I meant character count. Okay, so character count here is now going to be equal to character count plus 1. Okay, so that's what I mean. So by the time this is done, we will have the count, okay, of how many times the character appears in the contents that we've read. Okay. All right, so now we've finished reading from the file. So once we finish reading from the file, we should go ahead and close what we are using to read from the file, which in this case is the scanner objects that we created, which is up here. So let's go ahead and close it so that we don't use it to read from the file. Let's go ahead and close it because we are done using it to read from the file. And to do that, you just say user created where is it? User created file to scan dot close, like that, like this. Okay, so now we've closed it, and then since we will have the count over here, we can now print a nice print statement. We can print a nice statement and say, type in, sorry, and say this. We can say we have the contents in the variable, so we can use it. We can say the user character, okay, and concatenate it to a string. And so user character appears in the contents we read from the file, which is user contents from file, okay. And then we have, I'm going to put a space, concatenate it to a space, and concatenate it to say user character appears in user contents from file. Okay, I'm going to concatenate it to a space. So user contents from file is the contents from the file. User character is the character, the user type. So if user character appears in user contents from file space, we have the count here in character count. You can say character count, concatenate it to the string and say times. Okay, user character appears in the contents that we read from the file. This is the number of times, and then we say times. Okay, so if it's 4, we say 4 times. Okay, so it's going to read something. If we type in an A, and this contents was apple, and it's going to apple has. If we typed in, let's say, a P over here, the letter P, and we typed in apple over here, it's going to say, because P appears in apple twice, it's going to say P appears in apple 2 times. Okay, or let me just put parentheses around this so that it could be 1 time or 2 times. Okay. All right, so now now we're done. Now we're done, and we should be able to, it should work. Maybe it's going to give us throw a few errors, but for the most part we did it. So let's go ahead and run it and see what happens. So I'm going to compile it and create a folder in this, and I'm going to call it file letter counter. So new folder, file letter counter, and I'm going to create it here. Okay, we have a couple of errors. Let's see. Cannot find symbol, user writer file. Let's see. User writer file. How did I name it? I named it user write file. Okay, and over here I said user writer file. So I need to put R here just to, I want it to be user writer file. So it matches with this. So I'm going to compile it again. I have another error. It says cannot find symbol, user write file. User write file. I named it user writer file. Use user writer file here, and over here too I said user write file. Actually I want it to be user write file, not user writer file. I'm sorry. It sounds better that way. Actually, that's what I meant to type it as. I don't know why I said user writer file. Okay, so I wanted to declare that object as a user write file. Not, that's the name I want to call it. So I need to make sure I use the same name for all of them. So user write file and user write file here. Okay, so compile it. We have another error. Let's see. Okay, so it's supposed to be system.out.println. So I'm going to put the dot here. Compile it. Okay, I think I did the same thing. I think because I copied and pasted, maybe that's why. So I'm going to put the dot here too. And let's see. Non-static method next line cannot be referenced from a static context. Okay, let's see. Okay, so so it's trying to get the character from the next line. So basically what it's trying to say is it can't, this next line method, it doesn't have, you cannot basically attach or apply this method on next line. Okay, you have to apply it on what this whole thing returns, this whole scanner.next line returns. I need to put parentheses around it so that it returns the character at position 0 of what this whole thing returns, instead of applying the character only on next line. So I think that's what it's trying to say, and maybe it can't do that. All right, so let me go ahead and compile it. Still giving me the same thing. Let's see. I thought that was it. These are correct. Okay, so it's trying to say we can't get the character that way. Okay, I'm trying to see if it works that way. Okay, so we have other options. We have options, but I'm trying to see if we can just squeeze our way around it. Okay, one thing we can do is we can create a string that's just going to receive the content. So let me just go ahead and create a string and say string user user input string. Okay, I'm just going to say user input string. User input string. Now then, this is just one way to fix it, but there are other ways to fix it, I'm sure. So user input string is just going to go ahead and take what the user types over here. Where is it? Let me compile it so we can see it. Okay, so it's going to go ahead and so that's what it's going to accept what the user is going to type here. User input string. Okay, now I'm going to apply the character at that. I'm going to now, because I have the content stored in user input string, I can now go ahead. I'm surprised that it's in, maybe I'm missing something. Sometimes I don't see it. I have to take my time and go through it. So I'm going to hopefully this fixes it. I'm going to go ahead and, because I have the content stored in user input string, I can now say that I want input string. Let's see. I want the character the character at position 0 of user input string, and I want it stored in user character. I can try to do that and see if that works. Non-static method next line. Where is it? Can I be reference from a static content? I think it's from this and not from let me see. Oh, that's what I'm using a capital S here. Okay, let me go ahead and undo everything. This should work. It should work. Because I was trying to think. I'm using the class instead of using the object, and that's the problem. Because this should work. I think I've done it before, and then that was a problem. So let me go ahead and I don't need this user input string. Hopefully this works. Otherwise, I'd have to create that user input string again. But yeah, I was using the sorry. Yeah. See, non-static method cannot be referenced from a static content. All right. So that's what it is. I'm trying to use this the class instead of using the object. So I'm going to, because I created. Where is it? I created a scanner over here. Which is up here. I created a scanner up here somewhere over here, and I call the object scanner, but I'm using the scanner class to actually accept. The scanner class is not what it's going to use to accept inputs. It's the object that it's used. It's objects that I can use the method next line. I can use the next line method with the object that I created, okay, small letter s, to accept input. So let's hope this works. I'm using the small letter s now and compile it. Yes, it fixes it. Now we're moving on to the next error. Let's see. Cannot find. Yeah. So yeah, make sure it's one error. I didn't see it initially. I thought it was, because I've done this before and I shouldn't have any problem with it, because this is returning a string. This whole thing is returning a string. Initially, I thought I didn't surround it with parentheses, but if that was the case, that would have been reasonable. But this whole thing is returning a string, so why not? Why can't you be able to fetch me the first character of the string? So I was thinking about it, and again, I didn't see the capital letter S. So I was using the class. I was supposed to use a method, the object that I created, okay, to get the character at position 0 of the string that this whole thing returns. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next error. It says, I apologize for that, okay? It happens sometimes. It will happen to you unless you are really perfect. But I'm just saying it happens sometimes, you know. But we fix it anyways. But sometimes, you know, it just happens. All right. Okay, so now it says what? Cannot find symbol, class, file, letter, counter. Oh, sorry, not this is the class. Variable user string. Where did I use this user string? Let me undo it. I think I was trying to use the variable that I created here, so I didn't undo it well. So I was using the variable. Where is it? This wasn't the variable I was using user character. Okay, so this is going to fetch the character at position 0 of what the user types and store the user character. So that's what I was trying to do, because I created that variable up there, user input string. I was trying to type it, so I didn't undo it fully. So now we are storing that character in user character. I'm going to compile it. Okay, so I think we have another error. Let's see. The same error. So we have the same error. I think I used it somewhere else. Instead of using the small letter s for the, to represent the scanner object, I use a capital S. So this is the object. I'm going to compile it, and now it's done. All right. So yeah, it can happen. Just watch out for that. But at least we know what it is if we have such errors. Okay, so let's go ahead and so I'm going to. Okay, let's go ahead and compile it. And what's going to happen is, now did I let's see. File letter counter. Let's see. I created a folder for this, right? Did I? Let me go ahead and check. Java. Yeah, I did. I don't remember even. Chapter 4. Oh, file letter. I did. Okay. So now this is the folder that's going to contain the file when we run the program. Okay, this is the folder that's going to contain the file. Everything is going to be stored here. Now we see the folder doesn't have any file here. So I was just making sure. All right. So I'm going to run the program, and it's going to ask us, please enter the name of a file. I'm going to go ahead and, so for this file, just make sure you add the extension, okay? Let me just change it. Make sure you add the extension. Otherwise, if you want to use it to type just the name, you can go ahead and concatenate.txt to it if you want. But for now, let's assume the user is going to type the extension with it. All right, so let me just say, please enter the name of the file with the extension. All right. You can change it if you want the user to just enter the name. I'm sorry. If you want the user to just enter the name, you can go ahead and do that. And then, like I said, you can concatenate a .txt string to it, and you form like a full file name with the extension and use it. But for now, let's just allow the user to, type everything, .txt. All right, so I'm going to run this, or did I compile it? And then run it. Okay, so please just make sure everything works. Please enter the name of a file. I'm going to say new file.txt. Okay, so it says new file.txt has been created. Let's just make sure to see if it has been created. File letter counter, and we see new file.txt has been created. So good. Let's open it and see. There's nothing in there. All right, so let's continue with our program. Please enter what you want to type, or what you want to write, or yeah, we can say type in new file. I'm just going to say apple. Apples are nice, something like that. I just want to test on the P, because P in this string appears twice. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter, and it says apples are nice has been written to new file.txt. See what we did? We can go ahead and space this out so it prints out nice, but it says apples are nice, which is this. We can put quotations around it if we want, but at least it works. Apples are nice has been written to new file.txt. Checking to make sure new file.txt exists. Success, file exists. Reading from new file.txt. Please enter a character to count. So see, everything we did worked perfectly. So let's enter a character to count. All right, so let's say P. We want to see how many times P appears in apples are nice. Hit enter, and it says I'll explain why this happened, but it says P appears. I'll explain why this happened. All right, so we put the print statement in the loop, and that's what happened. So let's go check. Let's go and check what happened. All right, so we put the print, and we closed it so many times. So closing the file. Okay, closing the file of using the object that we are using to read contents from the file. Closing the file, okay, by using the objects that we are using to read content from the file, okay, and displaying the final output has to be done outside the loop. Now we are printing it in the loop. See, we are in the loop. So I'm going to go ahead and print it outside the loop. So every time it's printing, that's why we had to print so many times. So I'm now going to close the file, okay, outside the loop. Okay, after we've finished reading from the file, we close it by using the objects that represents by using the objects that we are using to read from the file. Yeah, we are using that to close the file and then printing the outputs. Okay, so now this is outside the loop. The loop is going to finish running here, and then we're going to go ahead and close the file and print it. All right, so let's try it again. We can go ahead and put line breaks, but let's just go ahead and try it. I'm going to enter the name of the same file name, and again, if not again, but I didn't say this. Maybe I said it in the previous program. If the file already exists and you type in the same name, it's going to just overwrite it. It's just going to overwrite it, delete the old file, replace it with a new one, or just overwrite it, replace it. So I'm going to I'm going to enter the name, which is I think new file.txt. New file.txt has been created. So let's see over here, which it should just replace it. Nothing should really change. We see new file.txt is still there. Nothing has changed. Okay, please enter what you want to write in new file. I'm just going to say apples are nice again. This time I'm going to even add again. So I'm going to add another P just so we have it 3 times. So apples are nice and powerful. I don't know. And powerful again. Apples are nice and powerful again. All right. So this string P appears in the string 3 times. So we should expect that. And I'm going to hit enter and say it's going to say apples are nice and powerful again has been written to new file.txt. Checking to make sure new file.txt exists. Success file exists. Reading from the new file the txt. Please enter a character to count. I'm going to type in P. Hit enter. And it says P appears in apples are nice and powerful again 3 times. Now when we are printing this, we can go ahead and put quotations around this. We can put quotations around the P. We can put quotations around a string. So we know what we are, what the string is and what the character is. So P appears in apples are nice and powerful again 3 times. Let's try one last time and then I'll end it here. Okay, so I'm going to type in envelope. Envelope has 3 E's. Okay, 3 E's. I'm going to hit enter. Oops, what did I do? This is creating the file, and I type in envelope. Now, because I didn't add any extension, it just created a file called envelope with no extension. So you can see in here that envelope has no extension. I'm going to go ahead and delete it. Okay, try this again. And the good thing is you can also check the file. You can open the file and see that it's been written in here. We can see that apples are nice and powerful again has been written in the file. Okay, so now let's run this one last time. Type in envelope, and like I said, I'll end it here. So envelope. And I'm sorry, I was about to do it again. So I'll type in a new file and say another file. Another file.txt. Hit enter. Another file.txt has been created. Please enter what you want to write in another file. I'm just going to say envelope now. All right, envelope, and I'm going to check for the letter E, and it should say 3 times. Okay, so E appears in envelope 3 times. All right, so if this was long and if it was too long, and I don't know if it was long for you, like I said, and if you knew some of the stuff, like I said, feel free to, like I've said in other videos, feel free to go through skip through the video. But if you liked it, if you liked us going through it, then great. And if you learned a lot, learned something from it, it doesn't even have to be a lot. If you learned something and if it was helpful in any way, then I'm very happy. Then I'm happy, and I'm happy for you. I'm happy for myself. I'm happy. That's what I want. So it works. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment down below. And thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time with the next program. Okay, bye-bye.